You're listening to the Parenting Pickup Podcast from your friends at New Horizon Academy. Our episodes revolve around all things child-related and includes information and insight you can add to your parenting toolbox, such as parenting tips, stories, and the latest research on child development. Many special guests, including experts in the early childhood education field, will join our host, Jordyn Prince, to share knowledge and help answer parenting questions. Enjoy this episode of the Parenting Pickup Podcast.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to our Parenting Pickup Podcast. I'm Jordyn Prince, the Media Production Specialist at New Horizon Academy. Today, we are joined with Kate Wessinger, who is a Behavior Specialist for New Horizon Academy. But before we dive into today's topic, Kate, can you tell us a little bit more about your background and what your role consists of?
Yes, well, thank you for having me. So my background is in infant and early childhood mental health, and I am a New Horizon employee, and in my role go out to consult with all of our child care centers, and I am a resource specialist for families and do coaching in the classroom for teachers, and that's how we all work together to support questions that people may be having about development or behavior or emotions or social skills in young children as they're developing and getting ready for the rest of their educational careers.
Well, it's very exciting to have you here to talk about such an important topic. Every family at New Horizon Academy experiences drop-offs at school, and each day can be a little bit different. Some days can be really good, and other days could have gone better. So first, can you explain why drop-offs can be such a difficult time for both the child and the parent?
Yeah, absolutely. Drop-offs are, something that we've all been through either as teachers or parents ourselves, and obviously, we understand that separations is really what a drop-off is, right? You're separating for the day, you're dropping your child or your baby off, and that can be just a really emotional time for sometimes the child, sometimes the adult, and also thinking about setting them up for success for their day, and then setting ourselves up as the parent for success in the rest of our workday too, if that's what we're going on to. So it's definitely an emotional time and one where we really want to be thinking about setting people up for success for their days.
All right, so I know you mentioned that there is a lot of difficulty with that separation, and is that a typical experience for children and parents to experience?
I think it's really important for all parents to know that separations being a little bit difficult is totally typical. Developmentally, there's a stage that babies enter by about 8 or 9 months that is the object permanence stage, where babies start to realize that when things or people aren't in immediate sight, that they still exist. And so we end up calling this separation anxiety phase, where babies realize that when you drop them off, that you're not with them anymore. And usually they protest a little bit, right? That's when we see that babies are, maybe you dropped them off one day and they were fine, and then you dropped them off the next day and, that object permanence is online. They realize that you're not there. And so they might cry, or they might be clingy with you at drop off as a parent. They might be protesting a little bit. And it can cause those goodbyes to obviously feel harder. Like we said, that sometimes those are hard goodbyes. Similarly, but different, is you can also have toddlers or preschoolers who experience separation anxiety. And usually that's happening if your relationship with your child features things like co-parenting, households, or traveling, or deployment. So a lot of separations that might be hard for the child to understand, or a lot of transitions in that child's day. Sometimes toddlers or preschoolers also experience separation anxiety with their adult, because you're just experiencing less togetherness time than you might both be wanting due to, busy schedules nowadays too. And sometimes also it can be happening for toddlers or preschoolers because of stress or anxiety reasons, or truly because separations that during that operational object permanence coming online when in their first year of life, that didn't get totally resolved, or that's still something that they're struggling with, is tolerating hellos and goodbyes and knowing how to cope with separation. So it is a very typical thing in that first year of life. We want to see kids go through separation anxiety despite the fact that it's hard. And then if it's still happening in toddler or preschooler years, that can be typical too, but we usually like to then think about, why might this be so hard, and how can we support somebody through those times?
Well, I think it is important that parents know that this is something that is normal and does happen to a lot of people, and it's something that can hopefully be worked on and resolved with a bunch of tips and different things to help making drop-offs go easier, and it's not something that they should feel like is only happening to their child.
Right.
So can you tell me a little bit about the differences between what the child is experiencing versus the parent?
Yes, so I think that's important to understand that both ourselves as parents are experiencing something and then the child's experiencing something too. So really, truly just to validate that when we're experiencing separation anxiety, that this is just really one of the hardest parts of parenting during that first year, and obviously beyond if you have a toddler or preschooler who's going through this as well, because it's painful to hear your baby or your young child cry when you depart. And that just goes right to the heart of it, right? So when that occurs, or if this is something that we're going through, that we want to be really intentional about tuning into how you feel on that parent side, how you're feeling in that moment, so that you can cope in a healthy way. As far as what the child's experiencing, is we know that they live very much in the present moment. So in the present moment, they are, feeling maybe worried or distressed or sad about that separation, but that it really leads into us being intentional about how we're then responding as the parents, so that that we don't leave that child in that murky feeling where they don't know what to do with the separation. So yeah, if we want to think about some tips together, we can do that. I think is important for people to know. Then what do we do?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure there's different things that teachers can even do to help versus parents, and even things that the children can work on themselves to help make things go a little bit smoother.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about tips, I think, again, thinking from that parent perspective first, is ideal that we try to stay as positive as possible, even though we know that it's hard. So we're staying positive because if you're signaling to your baby or your young child that you're upset or guilty or worried when you're saying goodbye, that it can actually increase their distress.
Yeah, right. I mean, if they're seeing you sad, it'll probably make them want to feel that way too.
Yes. And we don't want to leave them in that state. So being intentional again about how you're coping with your own feelings is how we solve that. The other tip is to always say goodbye. Say a goodbye. So avoid sneaking out, because that really sends the message to your child or your baby that you think you're doing something wrong by leaving. And again, we want them to realize that they can handle this, that goodbyes and hellos happen, that mommies and daddies always come back. So we want to make sure that we're sending them a healthy message about goodbyes. It also tends to put babies or young children on guard if we leave without saying goodbye and we sneak out. And we don't want to leave them in that hypervigilant state where then they have to feel continuing worry about where their adult is. It ultimately erodes trust in the relationship over time. Obviously, most of us want to have healthy relationships in our families. So thinking really intentionally about we can say goodbye. So that leads into really what I think most people think about it is the third tip is creating a goodbye routine that works for you and your child, because drop-offs are busy. You're probably going to work or starting your day as mommy or daddy, and your child, again, we want to get them off on the right foot for their early childhood experience, their learning time that day, their socializing time that day. So usually goodbye routines that work for most families are short, sweet, and truly special for your relationship. So it could be a special handshake that you have with your child or that you make up with them. A lot of times I like to talk to people about just doing like 2 hugs, 2 kisses, and an actual goodbye, and then departing. And I think that's that big thing too, that again, if we're feeling worried or guilty as a parent, that we do that lingering thing that we accidentally do sometime, and sometimes in that lingering also sends that signal of those guilty or worried feelings, and we want to make sure that we're actually departing in a smooth manner, so that we're sending that message of, hey, we can handle this together. And that last piece is really where maybe your New Horizon teacher will be coming into, like you mentioned. So if you're needing to make an intentional goodbye routine with your child, it's probably important to make a drop-off routine with your child's teacher too, so that you are both on the same page about what your child is needing. You're in agreement about that, and also that both you as the parent and that the teacher kind of have an expectation about what the adult role is in supporting that transition for your child, so that you can do things like having a smooth handoff or using comfort objects or transition objects if your child is needing to bring those into the classroom, that we can accommodate that you and your child's teacher are using similar wording with your child to help send healthy messages about comings and goings and hellos and goodbyes. and making sure that sometimes too, if we are, obviously those are going to be those moments where we're leaving and your child's still crying, that we are able to send you an encouraging message through Daily Connect, right? That we can send you a picture of your child smiling moments later, that they can do this, and that can feel good to everybody involved. There is also, I can say that in my role, if separation anxiety or drop-offs are especially intense for your child or your relationship, that at New Horizon, we can also partner as parents and teachers, and with myself as the early childhood behavior specialist, to create a supportive, individualized plan to help your child feel secure and start their school day off in a motivated way, so that this is as supportive as possible.
Well, I think all the tips that you talked about were really important, especially the sneaking away one, because I feel like a lot of us feel like that's just an easy way to go about it because they're distracted and they're not paying attention, so they'll hopefully won't notice, but then they will notice and they'll wonder why you didn't say goodbye to them. So I do think that that's something that a lot of parents think is just the easy option, but in reality it can lead to some more problems. So that is a really important tip. And I mean, if you could just emphasize what is your one piece of advice that you really want parents and teachers to be taking away from this, what would that be?
Yeah, I think it really gets back to that intentionality that your comment really just spoke to about, being mindful of not sneaking away, and what does that message send. So with drop-offs, with everything that we're teaching our children with their social and emotional skills, is really being intentional about what are the meta messages of what we are saying or demonstrating to them, really getting communicated. What sense of that are they making? Because the ultimate goal with supporting your child through separation anxiety, when it's happening either again at that first year of life baby milestone, and or as a toddler or a preschooler, if it's happening then, that we really want to support the child's healthy recognition of that message for themselves, that I can handle this, and that yes, mom and dads always do come back.
Right, and I feel like a lot of kids, they follow by example. So if you're showing them the goodbye is an okay thing to do, then they'll become more accustomed to it and they'll learn to do the same.
Exactly.
Well, Kate, thank you again for taking the time to talk to us today and providing some really great insight and advice. And I think that everything you said today is something that a lot of parents will find comfort in and know that this is something that does happen to everybody and it's something that we can all work through. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. Bye.
I like me.